Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair on the bridge of the UES Horizon. The ship had been flying through empty space for 6 long months. Every day was the same. Check the sensors. Look for anything unusual. Write reports that nobody back on. Earth would probably read. Jake was starting to think this whole deep space patrol mission was a waste of time. The Horizon was not a big ship. It had a crew of 42 people. Most of them were scientists who wanted to study whatever they might find out here in the dark between the stars. Jake had been a military pilot for 15 years before they gave him this command. He missed the action. Out here, nothing ever happened. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," said Lisa Park from her station. She was the communications officer, a young woman from California who was always excited about her work. Today she looked confused. Jake turned his chair toward her. "What kind of strange?" "It's a signal, sir. Very weak. Coming from the direction of the Volf system." Lisa's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "It's not natural. Someone is broadcasting this." The bridge got quiet. Everyone stopped what they were doing. In 6 months, they had found nothing but empty space and dead rocks. Now they had their first sign that someone else was out there. "Can you clean it up?" Jake asked. "I'm trying, sir. The signal is very old. It traveled a long way to reach us." Lisa worked for several minutes. Strange sounds came from the speakers. Clicks and whistles that made no sense. Dr. Amy Rodriguez walked onto the bridge. She was the ship's language expert, a small woman with gray hair who spoke 12 human languages. If anyone could figure out what they were hearing, it would be her. "Play it again," she said. Lisa played the signal 3 more times. Dr. Rodriguez listened carefully. Her face was serious. "This is not random noise. There is a pattern here. Someone is trying to communicate." Jake stood up from his chair. His heart was beating faster. First contact with aliens had always been a possibility, but nobody really expected it to happen. "How long will it take you to decode it?" "Give me a few hours. Maybe less if I can get the computer to help." Jake nodded. "Do it, Lisa. I want you to record everything. Every click, every whistle. Marcus, get down here." Marcus Webb was the chief engineer, a big man from Texas who could fix anything that broke on the ship. He arrived on the bridge 5 minutes later, wiping grease from his hands. "What's going on, Captain?" "We might have found aliens," Jake said. "I want you to check all our systems. Make sure everything is working perfectly. If we're about to make history, I don't want our equipment to fail us." The next few hours passed slowly. Dr. Rodriguez worked in her lab with the ship's computer. Lisa kept monitoring the signal to see if any more transmissions were coming. Marcus ran diagnostics on every system twice. Jake walked around the ship, trying to stay calm. Finally, Dr. Rodriguez called him to her lab. "I think I have something, Captain." Jake hurried to the lab. Dr. Rodriguez had filled 3 computer screens with strange symbols and numbers. "The signal uses mathematics as a base. Very clever. Math is universal. Once I figured that out, the rest became easier." "What does it say?" Dr. Rodriguez looked tired. She had been working for 4 hours straight. "It's a distress call, Captain. A very desperate one." She pressed a button and the computer spoke in a flat electronic voice. "To anyone who receives this message. We are the Kelani. Our world is called Kelani Prime. We are peaceful people. We explore the stars and trade with our neighbors. We mean no harm to anyone." The message paused. Then it continued. "A great danger comes toward us. They call themselves the Devourers. They destroy everything they touch. They have already killed 17 worlds. Billions of people are dead. Our world is next." Jake felt cold. "Keep playing it. We are not warriors. Our ships are built for exploration, not fighting. The Devourers have thousands of warships. We cannot stop them. We have sent this message to every corner of the galaxy. If there is anyone out there who can help us, please come. We are at coordinates 247.6 by 89.3 by 112.7. Our world has 3 billion people. We do not want to die," the message ended. The lab was quiet except for the hum of computers. "How old is this signal?" Jake asked. "Based on the distance it traveled, about 3 weeks old. The coordinates they gave point to a star system 47 light-years from here." Jake did the math in his head. At maximum speed, the Horizon could reach that system in 8 days. But that was not the real problem. The real problem was much bigger. "Lisa, get me a quantum link to Earth Command. Priority 1. "Yes, sir." Jake went back to his quarters to think. First contact with aliens was supposed to be handled by diplomats and scientists. There were protocols, rules to follow. But those rules were written for peaceful contact, not for a war. 30 minutes later, Jake was talking to Admiral Paul Richardson on Earth. The quantum communicator made it possible to talk across vast distances instantly. The Admiral was a tough old man who had fought in 3 wars. "You're sure this is real?" the Admiral asked. "Dr. Rodriguez is certain, sir. The signal is artificial. Someone sent it." "And you believe their story about these devourers?" Jake thought about it. "Sir, why would they lie? If they wanted to trick us, they would promise us something good, not ask for help in a war." The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. "What's your recommendation, Captain?" This was the big question. Jake knew that his answer could change everything. If he was wrong, he might start a war that humanity could not win. If he was right and did nothing, he would be letting innocent people die. "Sir, I think we should go to their system." "Find out if their story is true?" "That's 50 light-years outside human space, Captain. If something happens to you out there—" "We can't send help." "I understand, sir." Another long pause. "What about these devourers?" "If they exist, and they're as dangerous as the aliens say, going there might bring them to our attention." Jake had thought about this too. "Sir, if the devourers are real, and they destroy the colony, they might come toward human space next. Better to find out now than wait for them to show up at Earth." The Admiral made his decision. "Very well. Captain, take the Horizon to their coordinates. But be careful. If this is some kind of trap, get out of there fast." "Yes, sir." "And Captain? If these devourers are real, and they're as bad as the aliens say, you have my permission to render assistance. We don't abandon innocent people to die." The quantum link closed. Jake sat in his chair thinking about what came next. In a few hours they would jump to hyperspace. They would travel farther from Earth than any human had ever gone. They might find a peaceful alien species that needed help. They might find a trap. They might find something much worse. Jake walked back to the bridge. His crew was waiting for him. They all knew that everything was about to change. "Set course for the coordinates the colony provided," he said. "Maximum speed. Course laid in, Captain," said the helmsman. "Take us to hyperspace." The stars outside the windows stretched into lines of light. The Horizon jumped forward, racing toward a distant star system where 3 billion aliens waited to see if anyone in the galaxy cared enough to help them. Jake looked around at his crew. 42 humans about to possibly start humanity's first interstellar war. They were not soldiers. They were explorers and scientists. But sometimes Jake thought that was exactly what the universe needed. The Horizon dropped out of hyperspace near a beautiful blue and green world. Jake had seen many planets before, but this one was different. It seemed to glow with a soft light. Strange crystal structures floated in the upper atmosphere like jewels, hanging in the sky. Cities covered the surface, but they looked more like works of art than anything humans had ever built. "Captain, we're being scanned," Lisa Park reported from her station. "Multiple ships are approaching our position." Jake looked at the main screen. 3 alien vessels were coming toward them. The ships were sleek and graceful, with curved hulls that seemed to flow like water. They moved smoothly through space without any visible engines or exhaust. "Are their weapons powered?" Jake asked. "No, sir. They're not showing any signs of aggression. I'm receiving a transmission. Put it through." The speakers crackled with the same clicking and whistling sounds they had heard in the distress call. Then Dr. Rodriguez's translation program kicked in. A calm voice spoke in clear English. "Welcome, travelers from the stars. I am Zethara, speaker for the Kalani people. We are grateful that someone heard our call for help. Please come to our world. We need to speak with you. Jake looked around at his crew. This was it, humanity's first real contact with aliens. Send a reply? Tell them we're Captain Jake Morrison and crew of the human vessel Horizon. We received their distress call and came to help. The response came quickly. Humans. We have never heard of your kind before, but you came when we called. That shows a good heart. Follow our ships. We will guide you to a safe landing. The Kelani ships led them to a landing platform made of the same crystal material as the floating structures. As the Horizon settled onto the platform, Jake could see crowds of aliens gathering to watch. The Kelani were tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to shimmer with different colors. They moved with grace, like dancers. Sam, Kate, Amy, you're with me, Jake said. Dr. Sam Carter was the ship's biologist. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan was head of security. Dr. Amy Rodriguez would handle translation. Everyone else, stay on the ship and keep the engines ready. We don't know what we're walking into. The four humans put on their environmental suits and walked down the ramp. The Kelani, who met them, was the tallest alien Jake had ever imagined. She stood almost 8 feet high, with skin that glowed soft blue and green. Her large eyes held intelligence and sadness. I am Zethara, she said. Her voice was like music. You are the first beings to answer our call for help. In 300 years of sending messages to the stars, no one has ever come. Jake removed his helmet. The air was breathable, though it tasted different than Earth air. We're sorry it took us so long to get here. We came as fast as we could. Zethara's skin shifted to a warmer gold color. Your translation of our language is very good. How did you learn to speak Kelani? Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. We used mathematics as a base. Your distress call was very well constructed. Follow me, Zethara said. The Council of Speakers is waiting to meet you. We have much to discuss in little time. They walked through the Crystal City. Jake had never seen anything like it. The buildings seemed to grow from the ground like living things. Light flowed through the walls in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Gardens floated in the air, held up by some technology he could not understand. Your world is beautiful. Kate said, It took us 4,000 years to build, Zethara replied. We shaped every crystal, planted every garden, carved every flowing line. This is our masterpiece. And soon it will all be destroyed. They entered a large building that seemed to be made of solid light. Inside, 12 other Kelani sat in a circle. Their skin colors shifted as the humans entered. Some showed blue and green, which Jake guessed meant calm. Others showed red and orange, which probably meant fear or anger. Tell us about these devourers. Jake said after the introductions were finished. An older Kelani with silver-colored skin spoke. They appeared in our region of space 50 years ago. No one knows where they came from. They do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They arrive at a world and begin to tear it apart. Tear it apart how? Dr. Carter asked. They strip mine entire planets down to the core. They take all the metals, all the organic matter, all the water. They process it into materials for their ships. When they are done, nothing remains but dead rock floating in space. Zethara touched a crystal panel on the wall, the air above them filled with images. Jake saw a world covered in green forests and blue oceans. Then he saw the same world later, gray and lifeless, with huge machines stripping away the last traces of life. This was Morvac Prime, Zethara said. 2 billion people lived there. The Devourers consumed their world in 6 days. No one escaped. Dr. Carter looked sick. The entire biosphere? Everything. Plants, animals, microscopic life. They process it all into fuel and building materials. They leave nothing behind. How many worlds have they destroyed? Jake asked. 17 that we know of, probably more. They move through space like a plague, taking everything and leaving nothing. Kate leaned forward. What do their ships look like? Another Kelani answered. Massive, dark, angular, they look like they were built to destroy rather than explore. We have counted over 10,000 ships in their fleet. 10,000? Jake felt his stomach drop. The entire human fleet had less than 1,000 ships. And they grow stronger with each world they consume. They build more ships, more weapons, more mining equipment. They are like a cancer that spreads. Through the galaxy? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Have you tried to communicate with them? Many times. They ignore all attempts at contact. We think they may not be fully alive anymore. Our scientists believe they have replaced their organic parts with machines. They exist only to consume and expand. When will they arrive here? Jake asked. Our long-range sensors show them approaching. They will reach our system in 18 days. The room fell silent. 18 days. Jake thought about the horizons. Weapons. They had plasma cannons and missile tubes, but they were designed to fight pirates and raiders, not an alien invasion fleet. What kind of defenses do you have? Kate asked. Zeta's skin shifted to a deep purple color. We are not a warlike people. We have some patrol ships, but they are built for exploration and rescue work. We have never fought a real war. How many ships? 47. They are fast but not heavily armed? Jake did the math. 47 colony ships and one human vessel against 10,000 Devourer warships. The odds were impossible. There is something else, Safara said. Our scientists have been studying the Devourer flight path. After they finish with our world, they will continue in the same direction. That course will take them toward the region of space you came from. Jake felt cold. If the Devourers were heading toward human space, Earth itself might be in danger. Even if they wanted to abandon the colony, they could not ignore this threat. I need to contact my government, Jake said. This is bigger than one ship can handle. We understand. We will give you all the information we have about the Devourers. Ship designs, weapons capabilities, attack patterns. Perhaps your people can find a way to stop them. That night, Jake sat in his quarters aboard the Horizon, talking to Admiral Richardson through the quantum communicator. He had sent all the data the colony had provided. The threat is real, sir. These Devourers are unlike anything we've ever seen. They're not just conquerors, they're a force of total destruction. And you believe they're heading toward human space? The trajectory is clear, sir. After they finish with the colony system, they'll be pointed straight at our outer colonies. The Admiral was quiet for a long time. What do you recommend, Captain? Jake had been thinking about this all day. We need to help the colony fight them here. If we let them destroy this world, they'll just get stronger. By the time they reach human space, we won't be able to stop them. You're talking about committing humanity to an interstellar war, Captain. Yes, sir, I am. Another long pause. I'll need to speak with the President and the Colonial Council. Stand by. 2 hours later, the Admiral called back. You have your orders, Captain. Help the colony prepare their defenses. The entire colonial fleet is being mobilized. We're coming to help. Jake closed the communication link and looked out at the crystal city below. In 17 days, this beautiful world would be attacked by an enemy that had never been defeated. Humanity was about to fight its first battle for the survival of another species. He just hoped they would be strong enough to win. Jake stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching the most amazing sight he had ever seen. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace all around the colony system. Human ships, hundreds of them. The entire colonial fleet had come to fight, the biggest. Ship was the UES Defiance, a massive battle cruiser that had fought in the Martian Wars 20 years ago. Behind it came destroyers, cruisers, and support vessels. Even old cargo ships had been fitted with weapons and armor. Every human vessel that could fly and fight was here. Captain Morrison, this is Captain Ruth Hayes of the Defiance. Request permission to come aboard. Jake had heard of Ruth Hayes. She was a legend in the fleet. A tough woman who had never lost a battle. If anyone could figure out how to fight the Devourers, it would be her. Permission granted, Captain Hayes. Landing Bay 2 is clear. An hour later, Jake was sitting in the Horizons conference room with Captain Hayes and her staff. Hayes was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She looked at the data about the Devourers with the calm focus of someone who had seen many battles. 10,000 ships, she said. That's a lot. But we've fought against bad odds before. Not this bad, said her tactical officer, a young man named Lieutenant Ben Cross. Our best estimates say we're outnumbered 30 to 1. 30 to 1? Isn't impossible, Hayes replied. It just means we have to be 30 times smarter than they are. Dr. Carter spoke up. Captain Hayes, these aren't normal enemy ships. The Devourers have been consuming entire worlds for decades. Their technology is beyond anything we've seen. Every enemy seems impossible until you find their weakness, Hayes said. The Kalani have been fighting them for 50 years. They must have learned something useful. Over the next week, human and Kalani engineers worked together like never before. Marcus Webb spent his days in the crystal workshops learning about Kalani technology. The aliens had developed something amazing. Their crystals could store massive amounts of energy and redirect it in focused beams. Look at this, Marcus said to Jake. He held up a crystal the size of his fist. This little thing can hold enough power to run our entire ship for a week. And watch this. Marcus connected the crystal to a simple device. Energy flowed from the crystal into a beam of light that cut through a steel plate like it was paper. The Kalani use these for mining and construction, Marcus explained. But if we can connect enough of them together, we could build a weapon system that would make our plasma cannons look like toys. The Kalani were eager to help. Zathara worked with human engineers to design a defensive grid around their planet. Hundreds of crystal nodes would be placed in orbit, each one connected to the others. When the Devourers attacked, the entire network would fire at one stop, but they needed power. Massive amounts of power, more than the Kalani generators could provide. The human ships will have to act as power sources, Marcus explained to the fleet commanders. Each vessel will need to connect to the grid and feed power to the crystals. That means our ships will be sitting ducks, Captain Hayes said. We can't maneuver or fight back while we're connected to the power grid. It's the only way, Jake said. The crystal network is our best chance to stop the Devourers. Dr. Rodriguez had been studying the Devourer technology samples the Kalani had collected from previous battles. What she found made everyone worried. These aren't just aggressive aliens, she told the assembled commanders. They're cyborgs, part machine, part organic. But the organic parts are from dozens of different species. What does that mean? Hayes asked. It means they were once living beings like us, but they've been converted. Their bodies replaced with mechanical parts, their minds linked to a central computer system, they're slaves to whatever intelligence controls them. Dr. Carter looked at the data with horror. They've been doing this for centuries. Every species they encounter, they either destroy or convert. They add the useful ones to their collective and kill the rest. That's why they don't communicate, Jake realized. They don't see us as people. They see us as either resources to be harvested or threats to be eliminated. The Devourer fleet was getting closer. Long-range sensors showed them moving through space like a dark cloud. Their ships were massive, ugly things that looked more like industrial machines than spacecraft. Some were the size of cities, bristling with weapons and mining equipment. Captain Hayes studied the enemy formation. They travel in groups of 100 ships. Each group has different functions. Some are fighters, some are bombers, some are the harvesting vessels that strip apart planets. Any weaknesses? Jake asked. They're heavily armored, but not very fast. They rely on overwhelming numbers rather than speed or tactics. If we can hit them hard and fast, we might be able to break their formation. The human fleet spread out around the Kalani system. Every ship took position near a crystal node. Engineers worked around the clock to connect the power systems. It was dangerous work. If they made a mistake, the feedback could destroy both the ship and the crystal. With 5 days left before the Devourers arrived, the crystal network was finally ready. Jake stood on the bridge of the horizon, watching the test. Energy flowed from 300 human ships into the crystal grid. The nodes began to glow with brilliant light. Fire test beam, Captain Hayes ordered from the Defiance. A beam of pure energy shot out from the crystal network. It struck an asteroid 50,000 kilometers away. The asteroid simply vanished, turned to dust in a fraction of a second. That's what I call a weapon, Marcus said with satisfaction, but the power drain was enormous. Every human ship had to run their engines at maximum output just to keep the crystals charged. And they could only fire the weapon for a few seconds before the power system started to overload. "We'll get maybe 10 shots," Marcus reported. "After that, the crystals will need hours to recharge." "Then we better make those 10 shots count." Hayes replied the Kelani were amazed by what the humans had accomplished. Their beautiful crystal city had been turned into a fortress. Weapon platforms floated in the sky. Shield generators hummed with power. For the first time in 50 years, the Kelani had hope. "Your people are remarkable," Zathara told Jake. "In 1 week, you have done what we could not do in 50 years. We've had more practice at war," Jake replied sadly. "I wish we didn't." On the 4th day, the Devourers arrived. They came out of hyperspace at the edge of the system like a plague of metal locusts. Ship after ship appeared until the darkness of space was filled with their angular forms. Jake counted the sensor readings. 10,000 ships, just as the Kelani had predicted. Maybe more. The Devourer fleet moved toward the planet in perfect formation, no wasted motion. No unnecessary communication. They had done this before many times. They knew exactly how to strip apart a world and everyone on it. "All ships, this is Captain Hayes," came the voice over the communication system. "Remember what we're fighting for. There are 3 billion people on that planet who are counting on us. We didn't come this far to let them down." Jake looked around at his crew. They had traveled farther from Earth than any human had ever gone. They were about to fight an enemy that had never been defeated. The odds were impossible. But they were here, and they were ready. "Devourers entering weapons range," Lisa reported. "They're powering up their main guns." "All ships connect to the crystal network," Hayes ordered. "Prepare to fire on my command." Jake felt the Horizon's engines surge as power flowed into the crystal grid. Around the planet, 300 human ships became stationary targets, locked in place by the power cables connecting them to the weapons network. The Devourers opened fire first. Streams of energy and metal projectiles filled space, but they were still far away, and their shots scattered harmlessly against the planet's shields. "Crystal network fully charged," Marcus reported. "We have a clear shot." Captain Hayes waited until the enemy was closer. The Devourers came on in their perfect formation, confident that nothing could stop them. They had done this so many times before. "Fire," Hayes commanded. 10 beams of pure energy shot out from the crystal network. They struck the leading Devourer ships and tore through their armor like paper. Explosions lit up space as enemy vessels died, but 10 ships out of 10,000 was barely a scratch. The Devourers kept coming, and now they knew what they were facing. The real battle was about to begin. The space around Kelani Prime became a nightmare of fire and metal. The Devourers had spread out their massive fleet and begun their attack. Their ships fired constantly, sending streams of energy and missiles toward the planet. The crystal defense grid held, but Jake could see it was weakening with each hit. "Crystal network down to 60% power," Marcus reported. His voice was tight with stress. "We can't take much more of this." Captain Hayes' voice came over the communication system. "All ships, we need to take the fight to them. We can't just sit here and get pounded." But the human ships were locked in place by the power cables connecting them to the crystal grid. They were sitting targets. The Devourers had figured this out quickly and began focusing their fire on the human vessels. Jake watched as the destroyer UES Ranger took a direct hit from a Devourer plasma cannon. The ship's shields failed and fire erupted from its hull. "Ranger is down," came the report from the fleet communications officer. "Hull breach on all decks. They're abandoning ship." "We're losing too many ships," Jake said. "We need a new plan." Dr. Carter had been studying the Devourer attack patterns from the bridge. "Captain, I think I see something." The Devourer ships don't act independently. They're all connected to command vessels that coordinate their movements. Where are these command ships? Jake asked. There, Dr. Carter pointed to the main screen. Those 3 large vessels in the center of their formation. They're sending control signals to all the other ships. Kate Sullivan looked up from her tactical station. If we could take out those command ships, it might disrupt their entire fleet. But how do we reach them? Jake asked. They're protected by thousands of other ships. Marcus had an idea. What if we disconnect some ships from the Crystal Network? Use them to punch through the enemy lines? Captain Hayes heard the conversation. Over the open communication channel. Morrison, you might be onto something. I'm going to take 20 ships and make a run at their command vessels. Keep the Crystal Network firing to cover us. That's suicide, Captain, Jake said. 20 ships. Against 10,000? Sometimes suicide is the only option, Hayes replied. Besides, I've always wanted to see how close I could get to impossible odds before they killed me. The 20 fastest ships in the human fleet disconnected from the Crystal Network. The UES Defiance led them in a desperate charge toward the heart of the Devourer formation. The remaining ships kept feeding power to the crystals, sending beam after beam into the enemy fleet. Jake watched the Defiance and her escorts dive into the massive enemy ships. They were outnumbered 500 to 1, but they moved fast and hit hard. Human ships were smaller and more agile than the massive Devourer vessels. They could slip between the enemy formations and strike at weak points. Defense is taking heavy damage, Lisa reported. They're still fighting, but they won't last long. Crystal Network ready to fire again, Marcus announced. Target those command ships, Jake ordered. Give Hayes some support. The crystal beams lanced out toward the Devourer command vessels. 2 of the beams hit their targets, tearing huge holes in the alien ships. The 3rd command vessel tried to dodge, but it was too slow. The beam caught it on the side and split it in half. Something amazing happened. With their command ships destroyed, thousands of Devourer vessels suddenly stopped moving. They drifted in space like lost children, no longer receiving orders from their controllers. It worked, Dr. Carter said with excitement. They're confused. Their coordination is breaking down, but the victory was short-lived. New command ships moved forward from the rear of the Devourer fleet. These were even larger than the first ones and heavily protected by escort vessels. Within minutes, the enemy fleet was coordinated again. Captain Hayes, you need to get out of there, Jake radioed to the Defiance. They're bringing up reinforcements. Negative, Morrison. We're not done yet. The Defiance and her remaining escorts pushed deeper into the enemy formation. Jake could see explosions all around them as Devourer ships tried to stop their advance. 3 human ships were destroyed, then 5 more. But they kept going. Hayes, what are you doing? Jake demanded. I'm going to ram the biggest command ship they have, came the reply. If we can take out their main coordinator, it might buy you enough time to recharge the Crystal Network. Jake realized what Hayes was planning. Captain, no. There has to be another way. Sorry, Morrison. Sometimes this is what leadership looks like. The Defiance broke through the final line of escort ships and aimed directly at the massive Devourer command vessel. The alien ship was 10 times larger than the human battlecruiser, but Hayes didn't hesitate. At the last second, she overloaded. The Defiance's reactor, the explosion lit up space like a new sun. When the light faded, both ships were gone. The main Devourer command vessel had been completely destroyed, and with it, Ruth Hayes and her crew. The effect on the enemy fleet was immediate. Without their primary coordinator, the Devourers began attacking in smaller, unorganized groups. Some ships continued toward the planet. Others turned to fight each other. The perfect unity of their formation was broken. Now's our chance, Jake said. All ships pour everything we have into the Crystal Network. Let's make Hayes sacrifice. Count. The crystal beams fired again and again, tearing through the confused Devourer formations. Human ships that had been freed from escort duty joined the attack, using their speed and weapons to strike at enemy vessels that were no longer coordinated, but the Devourers were not finished. The largest ships in their fleet, the ones designed to strip apart planets, began moving toward Kelani Prime. These vessels were heavily armored and carried massive drilling equipment. If they reached the planet's surface, they would begin tearing it apart piece by piece. "We can't let those harvesters reach the planet," Jake said. "Kate, take a team and board one of those ships. Find out how to stop them." Kate Sullivan had been waiting for this order. She had trained for ship-to-ship combat her entire career. "Yes, sir. Give me 12 Marines and a fast shuttle." "Kate, these aren't human ships. We don't know what you'll find inside." "Then I guess we'll improvise," Kate replied. Kate and her team launched from the horizon in a small assault shuttle. They flew through the battle, dodging Devourer fire and human beam weapons. Their target was one of the harvester ships, a massive vessel covered in mining equipment and metal processing plants. "There," Kate pointed to an opening in the ship's hull. "Looks like a docking bay." The shuttle slipped inside the alien vessel. Kate and her Marines found themselves in a nightmare of machinery and converted beings. The Devourers they encountered were a horrible mix of organic and mechanical parts. Some had once been human-like, others were completely alien. All of them had been turned into machines that existed only to serve the collective. "My God," whispered Sergeant Don Miller, one of Kate's Marines. "What did they do to these people?" "Focus on the mission," Kate ordered. "We need to find the control center." They fought their way through corridors filled with converted beings and mechanical defenders. The Devourers were strong and fast, but they lacked the creativity and adaptability of human soldiers. Kate's team used grenades, cover fire, and tactical movement to push deeper into the ship. In the control center, they found the most horrible sight yet. Dozens of beings from different species were connected to the ship's computer system by cables and wires. Their minds had been linked to the harvester's controls, turning them into living components of the machine. "Can we free them?" asked Dr. Rodriguez over the radio. She had been monitoring the mission from the horizon. Kate looked at the connected beings. Some were still partially alive, their eyes moving with awareness and pain. "I don't think so. They're too integrated with the ship's systems." "Then we do what we came to do," Kate said grimly. Her team planted explosive charges throughout the control center. As they prepared to leave, one of the connected beings spoke. Its voice was a whisper, barely human. "Please," it said, "end this. Don't let them do this to anyone else." Kate nodded. "We won't." The Marines escaped just before the charges exploded. The harvester ship shuddered and began to drift. Its drilling equipment stopped working. The conversion facilities shut down. "One harvester down," Kate reported. "But there are 12 more heading for the planet." Jake looked at the tactical display. The battle was far from over. They had damaged the Devourer fleet, but thousands of enemy ships were still fighting. The crystal network was running low on power, and more harvester ships were approaching the planet every minute. But for the first time since the battle began, Jake felt hope. The Devourers could be beaten. It would take everything humanity had, but they could win. "All ships," he broadcast to the fleet. "This is Captain Morrison. We've proven these monsters can be stopped. Now let's finish what Captain Hayes started." Jake stared at the tactical display, his mind racing. The battle had been going for 6 hours. Half the human fleet was destroyed or damaged. The crystal network was failing, and 11 Devourer harvester ships were still heading toward Kelani Prime. "Captain, I have an idea," Dr. Rodriguez said from her station. "When Kate's team was inside that harvester, I recorded everything they saw. I think I know how to stop the Devourers." "Tell me." "The converted beings we saw weren't just controlling the ship, they were fighting against it. Some part of their original consciousness was still alive, still trying to break free from the machine programming." Jake didn't understand. "What does that mean?" "I think I can write a computer virus. Something that could wake up the suppressed minds inside the Devourer collective. If enough of them remember who they used to be, They might turn against their controllers. How do we get a virus into their system? Dr. Rodriguez looked at the display showing the approaching harvester ships. Someone would have to get close enough to one of their main computer cores, close enough to upload the virus directly. That's a suicide mission, Marcus said. Not necessarily, Jake replied, an idea forming in his mind. The horizon is small and fast. If we overload our reactor at the right moment, we could create an electromagnetic pulse that would disable their shields. Then we ram right into their command center and upload the virus. Captain, that would destroy our ship, Lisa said. I know. Jake looked around at his crew. These people had followed him across the galaxy. They had fought beside him against impossible odds. Now he was asking them to die with him. There might be another way, Marcus said suddenly. What if we don't ram them? What if we just get close enough to transfer the virus, then escape? Their point defense systems would tear us apart before we got within 1,000 kilometers. Jake replied. Not if they're distracted, Kate said over the radio. She was still aboard the disabled harvester with her team. Captain, I can create a diversion from inside this ship. Maybe even turn some of their own weapons against them. Dr. Rodriguez worked frantically at her computer. The virus is almost ready, but I need more data about their network protocols. Kate, can you access their communication systems? Already on it, Kate replied. Sergeant Miller is pretty good with alien computers, it turns out. On the main screen, Jake could see the remaining harvester ships getting closer to the planet. The colony cities below were preparing for the worst. Millions of people were evacuating to underground shelters. But if the harvesters reached the surface, no shelter would be deep enough. Virus is complete, Dr. Rodriguez announced. But Captain, I don't know if this will work. We're making a lot of assumptions about how their minds function. It's the best chance we have, Jake said. Helm, set course for the lead harvester, maximum speed. The horizon broke away from the Crystal Defense Network and raced toward the enemy formation. The remaining human ships tried to provide cover, but they were outnumbered and running low on ammunition. Captain, we're being targeted by every Devourer ship in the area, Lisa reported. They know what we're trying to do. Energy beams and missiles filled the space around the horizon. Jake watched his shields drop to 50%, then 30%. The ship shook as enemy fire found its mark. Hull breach on Deck 3, Marcus reported. We're losing atmosphere. Kate, now would be a good time for that diversion. Jake said. Working on it, came Kate's voice over the radio. Suddenly, one of the harvester ships began firing on its own escorts. Kate's team had managed to take control of some of its weapon systems. The other Devourer ships turned to deal with this unexpected threat, giving the horizon a few precious seconds. There's our opening, Jake said. Take us in. The horizon dove toward the lead harvester ship. It was massive, the size of a small city, covered in industrial equipment and weapon turrets. Jake could see an opening in its hull where smaller. Ship's docked, shields down to 10%, Lisa called out. We won't survive another hit. We don't need to survive another hit, Jake replied. We just need to get close enough. The horizon slipped inside the harvester's docking bay. Emergency doors began to close, trying to trap them inside, but Marcus was ready. He fired the ships. Engines at full power, pushing them deeper into the alien vessel. I'm reading the main computer core, Dr. Rodriguez said. It's 200 meters ahead, but there are blast doors in the way. Then we make our own door, Jake said. Marcus, fire the plasma cannons, clear us a path. The horizon's weapons tore through the interior of the harvester ship. Machinery exploded around them. Atmosphere rushed out through the holes they were creating. But they kept moving forward. Computer core dead ahead, Dr. Rodriguez announced. I can upload the virus from here, but I need a direct connection to their network. Jake looked at the display. The computer core was behind thick armor plating. Their weapons might be able to penetrate it, but the explosion would probably destroy them as well. Do it, he ordered. The plasma cannons fired at maximum power. The armor plating cracked, then shattered. Behind it was a vast chamber filled with the Harvester's main computer systems. And connected to those computers were hundreds of converted beings from dozens of different species. "My God," Dr. Rodriguez whispered. "There are so many of them." "Upload." "The virus," Jake ordered. Dr. Rodriguez's fingers flew over her controls. Data streamed from the horizon into the Harvester's computer network. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the converted beings in the chamber began to move. Their eyes opened. They looked around as if seeing their surroundings for the first time. In years, some began to struggle against the cables that connected them to the computers. Others started screaming. "It's working," Dr. Rodriguez said. "They're remembering who they are?" The effect spread beyond the computer chamber. Throughout the Harvester ship, converted beings began to rebel against their programming. Some attacked the mechanical parts of their own bodies. Others turned on the pure machines that controlled them. "The virus is spreading to other ships," Lisa reported. "I'm reading chaos throughout the Devourer fleet." On the main display, Jake could see Harvester ships turning their weapons on each other. The perfect coordination of the Devourer fleet was breaking down as thousands of converted minds remembered their original identities and fought back against their captors. "We need to get out of here," Marcus said. "This ship is tearing itself apart." But as they tried to leave, Jake realized they were trapped. The chaos inside the Harvester had damaged its docking systems. The exit was blocked by twisted metal. "And debris. Emergency teleporter," Jake ordered. "Everyone to the escape pods." His crew hesitated. "What about you, Captain?" Lisa asked. "Someone needs to make sure the virus keeps spreading." "Go, that's an order." One by one, his crew evacuated. To the escape pods, Dr. Rodriguez was the last to leave. "Captain, the virus is self-replicating now. It doesn't need our ship anymore." "I know," Jake said, "but I'm not leaving until I'm sure it worked." Dr. Rodriguez nodded and ran for the escape pods. Jake was alone on the bridge of the horizon, watching as the Devourer fleet tore itself apart. Converted beings were breaking free from their mechanical prisons. Ships that had been part of the collective for centuries were remembering their original purposes and turning against their oppressors. The Harvester ship around him was collapsing. Jake tried to reach an escape pod, but falling debris blocked his path. He was trapped through the viewports. He could see other ships in the Devourer fleet suffering the same fate. But he also saw something wonderful. Some of the converted beings were taking control of their ships and flying them away from the battle. They were free. Jake smiled as the Harvester ship's reactor overloaded. He had done what he came to do. 3 days later, the battle was over. The Devourer fleet was destroyed, torn apart by its own converted victims. Thousands of beings from dozens of species were free for the first time in centuries. Some chose to stay in their mechanical bodies. Others asked Dr. Carter to help them return to organic form. The Kelani world was saved. The crystal city still floated in the sky. The gardens still bloomed with impossible colors. 3 billion people were alive because humanity had answered their call for help. Dr. Rodriguez stood on the bridge of a new ship, the UES Liberation. She wore captain's insignia now. The ship was built with both human and Kelani technology, a symbol of the alliance that had grown from a single distress call. "Captain," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the Vega system." "It's another distress call." Dr. Rodriguez looked at the message. "Another species under attack, another world in danger. But this time they wouldn't face the darkness alone." "Set course for Vega," she ordered. "Maximum speed." The Liberation jumped to hyperspace, carrying hope to another corner of the galaxy. Behind them, on Colony Prime, a memorial listed the names of every human who had died in the battle. At the top, in letters of crystal and light, were the words, "They heard our call, and they came." Below that, in smaller text, was humanity's new promise to the galaxy: nobody fights alone. The distress call had changed everything. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not as conquerors but as protectors. And across the galaxy, other species were beginning to hear the same message the Kelani had sent so long ago.